Cardinals entered this offseason, they said they wanted not one, not two, but 3 starting pitchers. And so far, they have signed 2. The first one, we have Lance Lynn. He signed a 1-year, $10 million deal to return to the St. Louis Cardinals. If you remember, spent the first 6 seasons of his career in St. Louis, where he posted a 3.38 ERA and a 1.29 whip. I think the most important part is that he provided 175 plus innings in 5 of 6 seasons with the Cardinals. And that might be the most valuable asset when it comes to Lance Lynn at this point, because he just threw 183 and 2/3 innings. He was one of 25 starting pitchers to throw 180 plus this past season. Now we know the deal, Welsh. Not all of those innings were very good or useful for fantasy. In fact, most of them weren't. Probably one of my biggest blunders of the season this past year. But it's a great ballpark to pitch in. There's familiarity there. Should have a solid defense behind him. Good offensive run support as well. Any thoughts? Any excitement, I guess, jumping back in on Lance Lynn to St. Louis?
I don't know. I mean, these signings were the pecan and rhubarb pies of rotation pieces they could have got. I'm not really sure what the outside of depth. I don't really see it. That's fine. You know, there's a history there with Lance Lynn. Maybe we can revive the strikeouts. We saw like kind of slight velo dips. The slider took a backtrack. I wonder if they're going to be working on that in a different direction. Swinging strike percentage fell under 13%, still higher than it was 2 years ago. But, you know, he's kind of been this stabilized inning eating pitcher that has not been fantastic, but I do want to acknowledge depth. And as a lot of people had said early on, Cardinals fans, hey, if you got Lynn as your 4 or 5, great. That looks solid. The problem is he's currently like your 2 and Miles Mikolas is your 1. And that's what you don't like. And that's what you have to fix. So I do believe there's still one more bullet in the chamber, if you will, for what they're going to do with their rotation. But let's say it's the better guy. You know, I've talked to you off air and I think on air, like I think Yamamoto's in play here. Let's say it was even like Jordan Montgomery. Okay, Miles Mikolas 2, Lance Lynn 3. That doesn't feel great. It feels very unlike what the Cardinals are going to do. And I just don't know if I look at the Cardinals as the organization that's going to come in and fix all of these pitchers, or you know, it was worth the big gamble. I would have liked Lance Lynn to be a pairing with another high-end pitcher, because the Cardinals absolutely can turn everything around this coming year and be a force. I just don't know if it's going to be with guys like, you know, Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn.
Yeah, and Kyle Gibson was the other signing. We'll get to that in just a second here. The one thing with Lance Lynn, still got a ton of swinging strikes, 12.9% swinging strike rate. That was tied for 9th among all qualified starting pitchers last season. So if nothing else, I still do think there's some strikeout upside. Obviously, the control, the walks, the home runs were a disaster for Lance Lynn. He's getting up there in age. He's turns 37 years old in May. I think this is probably mostly for deeper leagues and innings eater type. And you hope that maybe he can get back to like a high 3s, maybe low 4s ERA there with Lance Lynn. The early ADP is 357.3. He's going just ahead of names like Tyler Wells, John Gray, and Louis Varland. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, I do. There's a lot of these guys that fall into this territory where it's like, if this and this thing went here, could we get one of the biggest values possible? I just think the upside is kind of gone. What do you have? You've got 180 innings. You've got good strikeouts, but you've got absolutely abysmal ERA. He had a 5.7 ERA last year with an expected 4.86. How much is that going to improve in St. Louis? Steamer projections, I don't think have updated on it. They did have him at a 4.33. Maybe, and when we see some other projections come out there that are factoring a lot more ballpark factors, maybe it'll be a tad bit lower. An even 4 ERA Lance Lynn could be a lot more serviceable in fantasy. I think it's somebody that, you know, if you are trying to build up some of those innings and there's a better opportunity for wins with this Cardinals team, I think this year, he might be a nice cheap source, but like going from 350 to being like a top 150, I just don't think it's going to live in that area. I think he'll just be a solid end out your rotation guy and hope that he fixes some of it, but he might be nothing more than a streamer.
All right, let's slide over to Kyle Gibson. The Cardinals also signed Kyle Gibson to a 1-year, $12 million deal with a club option for 2025. And Gibson, a lot like Lance Lynn, really just an innings eater type. This past season, a 4.73 ERA, 132 WHIP, but he did provide 192 innings. He's thrown 180 plus in 2 of his past 3 years. I was watching an interview with Derek Gould, who does a great job covering the Cardinals, and basically said that the Cardinals went into this offseason. They wanted 3 pitchers. They wanted 2 of those to be innings eaters. They needed more innings out of their starters. So that seems to be by design. I agree. I think they still need to make another big splash, whether it's a Yamamoto, they're still linked to Sonny Gray. I think one of those guys at the top, it looks better. I still don't know that that's a great rotation, but it seems like this is by design. They wanted some innings eaters types, even less than Lance Lynn. Welsh, I can't really muster up much enthusiasm for Kyle Gibson.
No, not at all. I also wonder what this says maybe overall about their bullpen and the future of their bullpen. You know, we've seen the cost of bullpen pieces is going through the roof, I think. And whether it is contractually or in trade conversation. So if you're wanting like really, really good bullpen pieces, we know it's going to cost. Gallegos and Helsley definitely work. Maybe there's some questions a little bit in the middle. I just wonder if these guys being able to eat as many innings as possible is kind of a testament to what their rotation looks like, or maybe facilitating 1 or 2 pitchers in that starting rotation that if you have guys that can go 7 and 8, you won't tax a bullpen. So if you need some support on lower inning guys, whether they are going to put Zach Thompson out, maybe it's a Steven Matz thing, or maybe it is bringing a guy like Yamamoto over where they might not be comfortable throwing. And we know there's like an adjustment period that's going to happen. And a really great breakdown, by the way, from Lance Brozdowski on Yamamoto of a lot of things I agree on, that maybe the fastball isn't quite as good as everybody is hoping it's going to be. And the arm side run on the splitter maybe doesn't make it as devastating as Senga. All of these things are to say, like, if the adjustment period is like a little bit more difficult, then you're going to want to have a bullpen that can protect, and you can't do it if you have a bunch of guys that are going to go 5. So maybe this is a little bit of a distrust in the bullpen, and maybe, just maybe, these signings are also a testament to the player that they're going to go acquire, which could be a Yamamoto, or maybe there's another pitcher. Maybe there's just a younger pitcher we're not thinking of. Glass now is out in the trade market as well. Protection for injuries and stuff. But yeah, there's nothing I pull out of Gibson. Gibson will be nothing for me in fantasy, probably not even a streaming option unless he proves otherwise.